Welcome to Grounded, home of mindfulness meditation self-transformation. Make sure to head over to our home of self-transformation page, which I shall link below, to keep up to date with the content me and Lauren are now sharing, which is life-changing at its core. But today, I'm going to be going a little bit deeper into understanding the nature, or at least trying to paint a picture of the nature of being, the nature of consciousness, and really get into the core root of that core of who you truly are. So what is consciousness? Let's start there. So consciousness is everything. Everything is made up of consciousness itself. But that doesn't mean everything is self-conscious. For example, your radiator, your table is not self-conscious. It is made up of consciousness, but it is not self-conscious. The animals around you may possess some level of self-consciousness, but again, not truly conscious. But consciousness itself is still the very basis of its existence. So consciousness is everything. Everything is made up of consciousness, but not everything is conscious. So let's come down to a human being level. Human being level is conscious, but we are only conscious of ourselves, which is to be conscious of our existence, to be conscious of our thoughts, to be conscious of our emotions, to be conscious of our actions. So human level consciousness is to be conscious of the mind and body, conscious of the reality. But that the consciousness we have, which is very limited in a human being until awakened, is still consciousness itself. So let me see if you can try to grasp where I'm going with this. So consciousness itself, when it awakens to its nature, so this is what an awakening is. Awakening is when your consciousness goes beyond the conscious awareness of your mind and body, and it realizes consciousness itself. That's an awakening. An awakening in a nutshell is your consciousness becoming conscious of consciousness itself. And then once you have this realization, once you have this awakening, you realize that everything is consciousness, but to the degree in which the consciousness has realized itself differs greatly, vastly. And so consciousness is what we could call we hear like everybody says nothingness and emptiness and vastness, and this is like just pointers to of how it is manifested or how it is accessed within ourselves, the realization of nothingness. But consciousness is far, far, far more than nothingness. It is a deep, deep intelligence, an intelligence that we can't comprehend as a human being. There's literally, you do not have the capacity of our minds cannot house such information. But if we're looking at consciousness as a whole, is a unified field. And that unified field, when we experience it in our everyday lives, or when we're experiencing it through meditation, or when we're so connected to it that we are it, this is the goal of awakening, to be it. To be it is to be in a state, or to live with no knowing. This is what we refer to as emptiness. It is to be in a state of nothing. But what that state of nothing is no individuation. It's that state of unity. But it's described as a nothingness because there's no individuation, there's no other point to it. As the moment there becomes a point within it, it's now coming into form, or it's separating as other from itself. So let me describe how consciousness actually comes down the levels. So the first thing is consciousness in complete unity, where there is no separation. That you experience as the state of pure being, You're just purely being. You're not trying. There's no trying involved in it. There's no knowledge involved in it. It just is. It just is as it is. But then it begins to come out of consciousness, and the first birth from pure unity is awareness. So out of pure unity is the birth of awareness. Now people say I am. You hear many people say I am consciousness, I am this, I am that. But I am is not the totality. I am is the first step away from the totality, the first projection out of totality. And that manifests as awareness. Your awareness is not the fundamental, because beyond the awareness is the totality, where there is no experience. But awareness is the first step out. Awareness is what consciousness begins to allow itself to experience itself. So it begins to experience itself through awareness. And then how that works in a human being is the awareness. Then when it comes into the body, when the awareness roots into the body, it takes on this mind-body association. So when I say somebody is conscious of their mind, conscious of their identity, and conscious of their body, that is still consciousness. It is still consciousness. You are consciousness, there's no doubt about it. There's no getting out of that. You are pure consciousness, pure life. But consciousness, when it comes into the body, when it realizes it, when it awakens to a conscious human level, it identifies with mind, body, and emotions. And then we get consciousness identifying with sense of self. So who you believe yourself to be, like, let's say, from using me as an example, my name's David, okay? Cool, right? I live here, I have a girlfriend, like I have 2 children, I teach mindfulness meditation. These are all associations happening in my mind. This is consciousness, if before I've awakened, having an identification with a person. So before I've awakened, I'm just David. Let's go back to when I was bodybuilding. I was just a bodybuilder, I had a girlfriend, 2 children, like I was into bodybuilding, I loved to go to the gym. I was consciousness being David. I was consciousness being the bodybuilder. I was consciousness being dad, being husband, being, so everything that I thought I was actually consciousness identifying with myself, creating this personal sense of self. And so when I'm talking about spirituality, when we're talking about awakening, we're talking about the conscious part of you awakening out of these identities, these thought structures, these beliefs, these associations, this sense of self. It's consciousness moving beyond that bubble in which it's currently inhabiting as a human person, as a human being, and it's moving beyond that and realizing itself. So it's consciousness becoming conscious of itself through a human being. And when that happens, once the consciousness recognizes itself, then it begins to detach. It begins to detach more from the identification, more from the beliefs, more from the associations, more from the ideas. It's detaching, or it's unplugging itself. It's unplugging itself from this personal identity. And as it unplugs itself, it's realizing its oneness. It's realizing its essence. It's realizing the totality. It's realizing life all around. It's consciousness blossoming through a person. Now you have consciousness walking in existence. You now have consciousness aware of itself in existence. Now consciousness is awoken in its own dream. Now this is where the planet's heading, to this deep, great understanding. Now when you move into this space, when your consciousness becomes aware of itself, it's becoming aware of the totality. So what it begins to do is it begins to pull everything together. If you look, let's look at consciousness in the first level before the I am or awareness has even happened. Look at that as like pure mirror. It's just one mirror. Now imagine that mirror being dropped and smashing on the floor into 1,000 million pieces. That's what consciousness does. That's how it knows itself. That's what the whole point of life is about. So it's in oneness and unity, and it breaks. And when it begins to awaken, it begins to pull all of the parts back together and to the point in which it's completed the mirror again. So as it pulls all the parts back together, it's getting to know itself. It's knowing itself again. The broken bits are allowing it to experience separate identity, separation. Through the separation, it begins to know and pull itself back together until it's the complete mirror again. And it's all a game. This is what consciousness is doing. It's all a game. It's all fun. Break the mirror, put myself back together. Break the mirror, put myself back together. And this is what consciousness has been doing since the beginning of time. There is only one. You are one. Just right now, consciousness is having many experiences of itself. So that's a little bit on what consciousness is. It's deep, but if you can just allow that to sink in, allow yourself to register it. So what a true awakening looks like is consciousness, realizing its source. And from that point, your life changes. From that point, your reality changes. Because you're now no longer in a reality that's pulling separation. That's magnetizing separation. Once you awaken, you're now magnetizing back togetherness. You're magnetizing unity. You're magnetizing into that state of wholeness. So when you awaken, your life can do nothing but expand. Expand back to unity. To the next one. Much love.